I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who strayed. I never saw myself as someone who would risk it all for a stolen moment, for a touch that sent shivers down my spine. But temptation has a way of creeping up when you least expect it, when you tell yourself you're just looking, just enjoying the fantasy. That was how it started with Ryan. I joined the gym to stay in shape, to feel better about myself. My husband, Mark, barely noticed the effort. He worked late, came home exhausted, and mumbled something about how good dinner smelled before collapsing onto the couch. I used to care. I used to try harder. But after years of marriage, I realized I was trying for a man who had stopped trying for me. Ryan was different. He was my personal trainer, tall, broad-shouldered, and built like a man who knew exactly how to handle a woman. He wasn't just attractive, he had a presence. Confidence dripped from every movement, every command he gave in that smooth, deep voice of his. Come on, just one more rep, you got this. It wasn't just his words, it was the way he said them, like he knew I'd push harder for him. Like he knew the effect he had on me. At first, I told myself it was harmless. A little crush. Nothing serious. I was just another client to him, another woman trying to tone up and shed a few pounds. But then, there was that moment. The moment everything changed. It was a late session. Most of the gym had emptied out, the sound of weights clanking in the distance, the hum of soft music in the background. I was stretching after an intense workout, my body sore, my mind clouded with exhaustion. Here, let me help, Ryan said, stepping behind me. I felt his hands on my waist, firm and steady. His breath was close, his body heat radiating against mine as he guided me into a deeper stretch. Relax, he murmured. Trust me. I swallowed hard, my heart hammering in my chest. His fingers pressed into my hips, holding me in place. My skin burned where he touched me, an ache forming deep in my belly. I wasn't supposed to feel this way, but in that moment I wanted more. I turned my head slightly, catching his gaze. His eyes were dark, unreadable, but there was something there, something that made my breath hitch. Neither of us spoke. The silence stretched between us, thick and charged. Then, just as quickly as it happened, he pulled away. Good job today, he said, his voice lower than usual. See you next session? I nodded, unable to form words, my body still tingling from his touch. As I walked out of the gym that night, I knew. This wasn't just a workout anymore. This was something else entirely. I tried to convince myself it was nothing. A moment of weakness. A silly attraction that didn't mean anything. But when I walked into the gym the next evening and saw Ryan standing there, waiting for me, I knew I had been lying to myself. He wore a tight black tank top, his muscular arms glistening slightly from an earlier workout. His sharp eyes met mine, and just like that, the air between us thickened. I swallowed hard, pushing down the rush of excitement that fluttered in my chest. Ready for today? He asked, his voice as smooth as ever. I nodded, forcing a smile. Yeah, let's do it. The workout was more intense than usual. Maybe it was the way he stood so close, the way his hands lingered just a second too long when he adjusted my posture. Or maybe it was the way I wanted him to touch me again, to press his hands against my body like he had the night before. By the time we finished, my muscles burned, but my body hummed with something else entirely. I sat on the bench, wiping the sweat from my forehead as Ryan crouched beside me. You're pushing harder lately, he said, watching me closely. I laughed softly. Guess I have a good trainer. His lips twitched into a smirk. You do. But I think we could take it to the next level. I raised an eyebrow. Oh! He leaned in just a little, his voice dropping. I do private sessions, one-on-one, no distractions. If you're interested. I should have said no. I should have laughed it off, told him I was just here for a normal workout. But the way he looked at me, the way my body responded to his presence, made it impossible to refuse. Where? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. My place. More space. No interruptions. I hesitated. This was dangerous. This was stepping over a line I had no business crossing. But the thought of being alone with him, of having his undivided attention, it was too tempting. I bit my lip. When? Tonight? I didn't go home after the gym. Instead, I drove to the address he texted me, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I told myself I was just going for a private lesson. Nothing had to happen. But deep down, I already knew the truth. When I knocked on his door, he opened it instantly, standing there in nothing but a pair of gray sweatpants. My eyes flickered over his broad chest, his defined muscles, the sharp dips of his abs. Come in, he said, his voice smooth, inviting. I stepped inside, and the door shut behind me with a soft click. The air was thick with unspoken tension. I knew what I was here for. And so did he. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed next to my husband, staring at the ceiling, my body still tingling from everything that had happened. My mind kept replaying it, Ryan's hands gripping my hips, his breath hot against my skin, the way he made me feel like the most desired woman in the world. I turned my head to look at Mark. He was already asleep, his body turned away from me, snoring softly. He had no idea. He had no clue that his wife had spent the night tangled in another man's arms. And the worst part? I didn't regret it. Guilt should have eaten me alive. I should have felt disgusted with myself. But instead, all I felt was the lingering excitement, the pulse of adrenaline that came from doing something I wasn't supposed to. The next morning, I went about my routine like nothing had changed. Mark kissed my cheek before heading off to work, distracted as always. And as soon as he was gone, I found myself reaching for my phone. Ryan, you coming in today? I stared at the message for a long moment before replying. Me? Yes. I didn't need a reason. I didn't need to justify it. I just needed to see him again. That afternoon, I walked into the gym, and Ryan was waiting for me, his arms crossed over his broad chest, that smirk tugging at his lips. Thought you might chicken out, he teased. I raised an eyebrow. Not a chance. We kept it professional, at least on the surface. The workout was intense, my muscles burning as he pushed me harder than ever before. But every touch, every glance, was laced with something deeper, something more dangerous. And then, just as the session was ending, he leaned in close, his lips brushing against my ear. My place. Tonight. It wasn't a question. It was a command. And I had no intention of saying no. That night, as I slipped out of the house, the thrill of sneaking around sent a rush of excitement through me. I knew I was playing a dangerous game. I knew I was risking everything. But the way Ryan made me feel, the way he awakened something in me that had been dormant for so long, I wasn't ready to let it go. If you're enjoying this intense and dramatic story, make sure to like and subscribe for more. I knew it couldn't last forever. For weeks, I lived a double life. By day, I was the devoted wife, the woman who kissed her husband goodbye and made dinner like nothing had changed. But at night, I was someone else, someone reckless, someone alive. Someone who craved Ryan's touch more than she feared the consequences. Every stolen moment with him was electric, every risk only making it more thrilling. I convinced myself we were careful, that no one would ever know. But secrets have a way of unraveling when you least expect them. And mine unraveled in the worst way possible. It started with a text message. I was in the kitchen, stirring a pot of pasta, when Mark's voice cut through the quiet. "Hey, who's Ryan?" My stomach dropped. I turned slowly, trying to keep my expression neutral. "What?" He held up my phone. My unlocked phone. The screen was glowing with a message from Ryan. "Ryan, miss you already." I felt the air shift between us, the weight of his gaze heavy on my skin. My mind raced. I could lie. I could say Ryan was just my trainer, that the message meant nothing. But something in Mark's face told me he already knew. "You've been distant lately," he said, his voice eerily calm. I didn't want to believe it, but he looked down at the screen again, his jaw clenching. "Tell me the truth." My hands trembled as I reached for the phone, but he pulled it away. "Tell me," he demanded, his voice rising now. I opened my mouth, but no words came. Because the truth was ugly. The truth was that I had betrayed him, not once, not twice, but over and over again. And I had done it willingly. His eyes darkened with something I had never seen before: hurt, anger, disgust. "How long?" he asked. "Mark, how long?" he snapped. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "A few months." He let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. Jesus, I should have known. Silence hung between us, thick and suffocating. Finally, he exhaled sharply, tossing my phone onto the counter. "I'm done," he said, his voice hollow. I hope he was worth it. And just like that, he walked out the door. I stood there for a long time after he left, staring at the door, waiting for it to open again. But it never did. Ryan had given me passion, excitement, an escape from the monotony of my marriage. But at what cost? I lost everything that night. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if it had been worth it. If you've been captivated by this dramatic and emotional story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more intense and thrilling tales.